Attention all personnel. Incoming podcast. This is MASH Matters.
MASH Matters! We are back for another episode. I'm Ryan Patrick alongside the wonderful Jeff Maxwell. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Ryan Patrick. I just keep reminding everyone that we have a very, very classy podcast with no stupid things or stupid effects or anything like that. So I want everybody to always remember that. We are a classy couple of guys. Okay.
We ooze class.
We do.
Yes.
All over my chair.
Hey, we had a great response from listeners from part one of our interview with Jamie Farr and wanted to read just a couple of notes that we received. We heard from our friend Gabriella Fortier, who said, hey, what a great interview with Jamie Farr. I enjoyed listening to his story about how he got the part of Klinger. I look forward to part two. I really enjoyed his stories about Red Skelton. Every year at Christmas time, my parents and I would watch Red Skelton's Christmas dinner. The best scene was when Red did his mime routine in the children's ward at the hospital. It was magical.
Very cool. Do you know, now this is a myth, I guess, or not. I don't know whether this is the absolute truth, but Red Skelton used to, every time before he would go out on stage to do the television show, I don't know about the live performance, but I assume that would hold true as well, he would throw up.
Really?
He was so nervous that he had to go throw up, and then he'd run out on stage and do his stuff.
How about that?
I hope he took some breath mints when he went out there after.
His poor co-stars.
Anyway, I don't mean to divert our conversation about Jamie Farr, but that's what I understand to be true. I wish I'd asked Jamie if he knew anything about that. I kind of forgot that.
You know, it's funny. I've heard from some listeners, they say when they finish listening to our podcast, they throw up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Weird.
Oh,
So strange.
God. Wow.
Hey, we heard from Maricia Stamper. I hope I pronounced your name right. I have enjoyed this podcast since the beginning. Ryan is always so excited during the interviews with other cast members, but with Jamie Farr, Jeff seems even more excited to talk about the show, and I think he is beginning to appreciate the show from our perspective as fans. Keep up the great work, guys. We as fans love it.
I am absolutely positively right. I get that energy from Ryan, and I listen to Jamie. I'm coming over to your side. I'm a little closer, just a little, but I'm coming.
Come to the MASH side.
But you can't help it, talking to Jamie. He's got so much energy and he's got so much fun stuff to say.
Oh, yeah.
And he's such a beloved character. How can you not get excited and be a part of that?
From Nan Hine, she says, I found a passing reference to your podcast in an article. I have a 2-hour drive in the middle of nowhere every weekend. There are 2 curves, 3 turns, no stoplights, and 2 stop signs. You have certainly brightened my drive.
God, jeez. God, we got the roadmap of her daily life. Stop and get a cheeseburger somewhere or something.
And from Mark, he says, Ryan and Jeff, the last podcast with Jamie Farr was the best. I could listen to Mr. Farr all day long. His stories were so great. Cannot wait for part 2. Well, Mark, we don't want to leave you waiting any longer. So here's part 2 of our conversation with Jamie Farr.
Okay, going back to some of our questions. So, Mr. Mike Jameson, hi, Mike. How did you initially feel when you knew you'd be wearing women's clothes on television?
If I may use a line that Clark Gable said at the end of Gone with the Wind, quite frankly, Charlotte, I don't give a damn. Hey, listen, Jeff, you know as well as I do, you get a job, you take
You take it. Sure, yeah.
If you're hungry, I'm sure Boris Karloff didn't say, you know what, I don't think I'll take this Frankenstein bit because I'm being known with this monster outfit. I'm sure he had to pay some bills, right?
I did audition for a show umpteen years ago, and I had to be in full women's clothing with high heels.
Wow.
And so I went and I did the audition, and it went very well. I actually got the part, but something happened to the show. But anyway, I had to go home, and I'm driving back to my home, and I'm in kind of a rough area in Los Angeles, and I realize I don't have any gas.
Oh, no.
So I pull into the gas station, and I get out dressed as I was in full high heels. And boy, I've got to tell you, I got some wacky looks.
Yes.
I was a little nervous.
Well, let me tell you what happened to me on the lot. when it was the first season that I was on the show, okay? And, of course, I don't think my character had aired yet. I had done several of them. You know, they were still in the can, and they hadn't put them on the air yet. And what happened was I was in this black outfit that zipped up in the back. And everybody had left, and they hadn't told me that they were closed down for the set. So I came out. Where the heck is and nobody's around. Yeah. So I see the men's restroom. Remember the men's restroom that was across the way from stage 9?
Yeah.
So I see the light on in there, and I got the high heels on and this black outfit on with a black hat, and I go in there, and there's a stagehand. You know, his hands were like as big as a basketball or that. And I said, "Sir," I said, "could you get me out of this dress?" I said, "I can't get the zipper in the back." Well, he looked at me, and there was just the two of us in the men's room. So, he got out of there faster than I got out of there, you know.
And he never told anybody. Yeah.
No, he probably never told anybody. Yeah, but he did get me. The zipper didn't work. He got me out of the outfit. Yeah, no, I've run into those kind of situations. Yeah.
Jamie, John Capiello, he asks, what was your favorite Klinger scheme to get out of the Army?
I think the one that got the biggest laugh, and it reminded me of the old radio show with Jack Benny.
Oh, yeah.
That got the biggest laugh is, when the guy says, your money or your life, and there's this long pause. And then the guy says again, he's got him held up with the gun, your money or your life. And Jack Benny says, I'm thinking.
Yes.
And I think the funniest, the reason I say this is because the show aired on I think we were on a Tuesday night at that particular time. And the next day, I happened to be in Beverly Hills doing some shopping or something there. And it was a day that we weren't shooting. And cab drivers were honking horns at me. Bus drivers were honking. Pedestrians were waving at me. It was the one where I showed up as the Statue of Liberty at the end when Douglas MacArthur comes in.
Oh, yeah. Big Mac, yes.
People told me they actually fell off their sofas when they saw that, and so I think based on the reaction that I got just from the general public, that was probably one of the most outrageous and funniest things that happened.
Well, speaking of wearing some, Mr. Eric Engler, he's a regular to our podcast, and he does some dressing up like you at various events.
What's his name?
Eric Engler.
Yes, I got a photo from him.
Oh,
I have it. He sent me a picture of in that yellow outfit that I had on.
Oh my goodness! Yes. Oh.
Yes, I got a fan letter from him. He told me that he and his daughter or something. They go. I wasn't sure whether to answer the letter or not. But I think I have it. Maybe I still have it here. What happens is a lot of people write to my agent, and my agent's in New York, and my agent doesn't give me the fan mail until he decides to come into L.A. Oh. So I get these bushels of fan letters, and I go, oh, how the heck am I going to answer? And some of them, are almost a year old, for crying out loud. Yeah. So I do get them, and I try to answer them as best. But yes, I do believe I will. I shall make it a point, if Mr. Engler is watching, to see if I can't, autograph it and send it back to him.
Well, he says, Jamie, please tell me about the Gone with the Wind dress. How did it come about? What was it like wearing it? I have one for cosplay, and even in today's society, I get strange looks. I wear it in your honor, however.
Well, I'm honored that he wears it in my honor, but I would imagine you would get a strange look. Here in Hollywood, we don't. I don't know if we'd get strange looks.
I don't know anymore. You don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how strange and bizarre the character would be in today's world. Yeah. So I don't know. Hey, it's amazing what people will see on TV and then try to emulate and do and everything. As I said, I'm often taken back by not only the silliness of what goes on, but the sincerity of the people. And as you pointed out earlier, of what the show meant to them in terms of changing their lives. going into medicine and just looking at life from a different point of view.
It was an amazing thing to have a television show have that much impact.
Yeah. I mean, it's a TV show.
It's a TV show. And this is 2020, and the show ended in 1983.
Yeah.
And you're still feeling this emotional, gushing from people. It's really amazing.
Well, what's nice about it too, Jeff, is that I get a lot of mail, and I'm sure you do. They watch it with their grandparents, and now their parents, and they have children, and they watch it with their children.
Yes.
Yep.
I get fan mail from younger people too, not just the ones that grew up as a kid watching it and then watch it now as an adult, but young people that found the show and will say that's their favorite show. The writing was so good. I mean, I can't get over how meaningful, the writing was. To get great lines that come out of a half-hour comedy or dramedy, as they used to call us, that are memorable. You watch a show and you go, oh yeah, that was funny, and you watch Seinfeld and that. But the show that we did, the message that we were transmitting was so much deeper than some of these other shows that the plots were.
Yeah.
Yes, the writing was great, but without performers like you and your castmates, it would not have been able to be a success like it was.
I totally agree. And again, as Jeff said, luck, and it is luck, but it's also, I think, the genius of Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart and Burt Metcalf that knew how to put everybody, into where they belonged and what they were going to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The guidance that we had was superior.
Definitely superior. We have a couple of comments from Sean and Lee. You, Jamie, are responsible for some of the funniest scenes ever done in TV history. How's that for an opening?
Wow.
Boy.
Gee, I wish the show was still going on. I might get a raise with the... It wasn't... I'll tell you something. They were all wonderful, but it wasn't easy getting a raise for salary. They were pretty frugal over there at Fox.
That's the biz in showbiz.
Yeah, that story how I got my raise. Yeah, do you remember Ron Beckman was the hatchet man over there? I don't know if you ever dealt with him. But I was doing the Blue Night with William Holden, the James Wambaugh thing, and I was telling Bill, I said, Bill, I'm having a problem over there. I'm not making that kind of money. And I said, I know that I have a popularity. He says, Jamie, you're wonderful on the show. He said, the thing is, he said, they did that with me. He said, when I was at Columbia, Harry Cohn did that. He said, the agent can't do it. You have to do it. You have to be the one to get into the office and tell them that you want it, because they'll just tell the agent, hey, we won't hire any of your actors and that if you keep asking for more money. So what I did is I decided, okay, I went to Doug Stubbs. Remember our prop master?
Yeah, Doug Stubbs, yeah.
And I got a prop gun from him. And I was in my fatigues at that time, and his Ron Beckman's office was right across from stage 9, and it was like a cartoon. I'd hide behind a tree, and then I'd go behind a bush, and then I'd peek in his window, and his desk was facing away from the window, and so his back was to the window, and I saw him in the office. So what I did is I went around, I went into the office, I went past the receptionist, kicked his door open and I said to him, listen, you SOB, this is the way the deal is going to go. And I pointed the gun at him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he ducked under the desk. He said, you're crazy. I said, that's right. You're absolutely right. I'm crazy. So at any rate, I did get my raise.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, but somebody told me that's not a new way of doing it. I think it was the young man that was on Sanford and Son. I think he did the same thing, but he went in with a real gun. But it was like a 38, a small gun, and he held it at the producer. And the producer sat at his desk. He opened his drawer and he pulled out a Magnum 45. He says, "And you were saying?"
And you were saying, "Boy, if you did that today, you'd probably be shot dead." I mean, boom! Wow,
yeah,
that's a story. What a story! That's fascinating. Wow, what a way to get a raise.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, Sean and Lee also say, but your range as an actor went to another level as the show progressed. Episodes such as Dear Sis, scene with David Ogden Stiers, and the whole episode of Follies of the Living showed us how incredible your range as an actor was.
Well, how nice.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. But also the trust that the writers had that would allow you to do that, because sometimes one thing I used to get upset with when I'd be on a show is that the directors or the casting people would hire somebody and then ask them to do something that they weren't capable of doing. And it's not their fault. They just were not capable. Some performers can't do certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm saying it's not their fault. It's your fault. You're asking them to do something they can't do. But the fact that they trusted all of us to whatever they gave us, and everybody delivered.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. Another unique thing about the program.
They were interested in whether you can speak to an evolution of the Klinger character, from one going from the kind of crazy, wacky guy in a dress to the serious guy.
Well, I think they realized that they could replace McLean Stevenson, they could replace Wayne Rogers, they could replace Larry Linville, but I think the irreplaceable one was Gary Radar. That who would you bring in that would be interesting enough to wouldn't be just a company clerk, So I think that's when they made the transition to say whoever came up with the idea to make me the company clerk
Mm-hmm.
was when that all happened.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you don't think that is dangerous, you go, oh my goodness, they're taking my shtick away,
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Am I gonna last without the shtick?
Yeah.
So listen, it all worked out, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so delighted the way they handled it, and that they had enough faith in me that I would be able to accomplish that.
Well, that indeed, because that speaks to your ability as a comedic actor. You didn't necessarily need the dress. The dress was great, and it was a historic moment, I think, on a television show. But you were okay without it, and you found a way to be who you are in a comedic sense in that other portion of the character.
Well, but you know what? The training that I had, my first movie was Blackboard Jungle at MGM with Sidney Poitier, Glenn Ford, and Vic Morrow, and Paul Mazursky, and Richard Kiley, and Louis Calhern, and I had Richard Brooks as a director. I remember, I also did movies like The Greatest Story Ever Told, the biblical thing, working with Max von Sydow, who's one of Ingmar Bergman's great actors from Sweden, and all of the other shows that I did. I did dramatic shows, I did comedy shows, I did all of it. So I worked with some of the greatest and most famous people, and you learn from them. You learn how they approach something. So that was my training ground. And I started at the Pasadena Playhouse doing all kinds of plays, not just comedies, but theater. I had a wonderful Shakespearean teacher, Jack Lynn. I actually, at the age of 18, played King Lear.
Oh, right.
We had to do it as a first-year project, and you had to put the makeup on with the beard and everything else. And I learned a great deal from just trying to learn the lines and what those lines meant.
Yeah.
So my background wasn't just, somebody that came on and said, hey, I was on the Danny Kaye show, or I was on Get Smart, or I was on whatever that I did. I had a cross-section of all kinds of stuff that I had done.
Jamie, I'm curious about leading up to and then filming the final episode, and then all of the hoopla and the frenzy when it aired. Can you tell us about your memories of that time?
Well, it was exhausting. Actually, there wasn't one time that we didn't have an interview that we were doing. Every TV show, every radio show, we were on PBS. We were all over the place, magazines, newspapers, and I think Jeff will remember that final shot, even though the final it wasn't the final show that was aired, but the final piece of film that we shot of the series. We had, I think, 400 people on this set with cameras and newspapers and everything. It was absolutely exhausting. We were all tired, and at the same time, it was a very sad moment for all of us. It was, my gracious, 11 years of, being on that stage with these wonderful people that you came to know and love, not only as actors but as friends. It was overwhelming. And again, the question mark comes up in your mind is, okay, where am I going from here? What's going to happen? You're taking my secure blanket away, my blanket of security.
Right.
So, and who knew? Who knew what was going to happen? Yeah, it was overwhelming. And I mean, we were on the cover of TV Guide, the cover of People magazine, I think the cover of Newsweek, we were all over the place. It was a historical moment. And if it hadn't been for the population explosion of now 300 and some odd million people in the United States, when we went off the air with that final episode, that was 200 million people were in the United States. If it wasn't for the Super Bowl, we'd still be the highest rated show in the history of television.
Yeah.
We are the highest rated of any kind of television program.
Right, scripted.
But we're not the highest rated show because of the Super Bowls that they've had.
Well, you said that taking away the security blanket and not knowing what to do next, but what you did next was you kept going with the character of Max Klinger with Aftermash. And we had Rob on Twitter and also our friend Lisa Fetzko. She asked questions about Aftermash and would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I got into a lot of trouble with that because it's one thing if you're Alan Alda, you can talk to them and say, well, I think we're going in the wrong direction. But if you're Jamie Farr, you're back in the alphabet soup, So I thought we were heading in the wrong direction with it. And originally I thought the direction they were going in was great. And then what happened is they changed the approach of the show, and again, we started out great and we just kind of fizzled as it went along. And I regret that. I honestly wanted it to be at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, and make it like the best years of our lives. More so, and they didn't see it that way. They didn't see that. They thought best years of our lives kind of plotting wouldn't hold up in that era of 1983. And that's what I really thought it should have been more like. I mean, first of all, they had me, worried about if I didn't worry about generals in the Army, why would I worry about the, hospital administrator that was there? And of course, I got married, and Rosalind Chow was absolutely wonderful. I don't know if you got to know her at all, Jeff, but she's such a lovely lady.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
The one that played my wife in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, as I said, I had a lot of issues with it, but I didn't have the stardom, the strength to make your opinion known. And you have to trust the people that got you there. So
you just never know in terms of what's going to catch that magic.
That's exactly right. You never know.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knew what MASH was going to be until it became what it was.
Exactly right. We almost got canceled that first year. Yeah. We were on Against the Wonderful World of Disney, and if it wasn't for Bill Paley's wife, Babe Paley, who liked the show, said change the time spot, and Mr. Paley said okay, and he put it on Saturday night with the greatest night in the history of television with All in the Family, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, and the Carol Burnett Show.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, nobody even left their house. They didn't even get up to go to the bathroom.
That was a lineup.
No, it was an incredible ride. But yeah, no, MASH was ready to be canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, as they said, it's a crapshoot. You never know when the 7-Elevens are.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Stop coming up for you. So
movies. I watch movies. They come out and they're some of them I like, but they flop, and others I don't like, and they're huge hits.
That's exactly. You're 100% right. Yeah.
I have no idea.
And you never know, and sometimes you get surprised. You go, well, why did everybody go see that movie?
Right.
Or why did that movie fail?
Yeah.
Hey, it's up to the general public. Well, look at all the programs that we have now. When we were on the air, it was only 3 networks. Now, my gracious, you have a choice of all kinds of things going on.
What do you watch? What do you like to watch on television?
My wife and I, we enjoy a lot of the English shows.
Yeah.
We watch Midsummer's Murders and Miss Marple and all of those kind of mystery. We used to love You Being Served and some of the English comedies that they had. I'm trying to think of any of the American TV shows. I know Joy watches Blue Bloods. She likes that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a little tired of the forensic stuff. Before, they never used to show the bodies on the table Now I think they're shooting through the bodies. You see somebody's liver or whatever the heck it is.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I need to see that, especially at dinner time if I'm sitting there. And some of the things that drive me crazy is the editing, the cutting that they do. If you could have a scene like with 4 people or something, and there are only 4 lines, they have like about 5 setups for the 4 lines.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And you go cut. When I worked with Richard Brooks, the director, he said, Jamie, the most important shot in a movie is a 2-shot. He said, you hire the best actors and the audience cuts for you. You don't cut a lot unless, he said, a close-up is really only for something that you really want them to take note of.
Yeah.
But they've overused, the close-ups. They overuse a lot of the cutting of the show. And I think they said they got that from young people not having an attention span, that commercials were the things that kind of set that up for them with cut all over the place.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked with George Stevens, the greatest story ever told, he said, what's important with a close-up? It's not what you're saying, it's what you're thinking.
Yep.
And, again, you learn from some of these great directors that help set the business. But again, if you want to work, you work where the work is,
right.
and the way they work it. So that's what you do.
Jamie, you've mentioned your wife a few times, and I think it's very interesting. When I was doing some research, I found that your wife actually has a page on the Internet Movie Database because of her appearances as herself on the game show Tattletales.
Oh, yeah. She was on Tattletales, and she was on something else. I forgot. Oh, she's a funny lady.
Yeah.
She used to put me away. Yeah, she would say some of the funniest things and that. But she's not interested in the business. Never really was.
How long have you been married?
Let's see. 57th year.
Wow.
Yeah, 57.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she grew up in Danville, Illinois, right around the corner from Dick and Jerry Van Dyke in Danville, Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
When I was doing the Dick Van Dyke show, she used to go and talk to Dick all the time at the local places that were there in Danville, population about 44,000 people.
Hey, Jamie, do you have one absolutely favorite moment of your 11? I know this is a crazy question to ask, but through 11 years of MASH, is there something that really sticks out in your head as being a very, very special moment for you?
Well, I think, the one that everybody should do is their favorite show, and their favorite moments in the show, because there were so many wonderful shows that we did and so many interesting things that we did. This has nothing to do with their show, but this has to do with when I was growing up back in Toledo. We had all those wonderful theaters. One of them was the Paramount Theater, and they used to bring in Broadway shows that were on tour. And so I think I was in high school, and I was an usher at the Paramount Theater for the tour of Guys and Dolls. And, Alan Alda's dad, Robert Alda, was the original Sky Masterson on Broadway.
Yes.
And I had never seen a Broadway show. In this particular version, it was Jack Jones's dad, Alan Jones, who was Sky Masterson. And I saw that show, and I couldn't believe the numbers that were in that. And I said, boy, I'd love to have that happen to me someday. I would love to play the Nathan Detroit part, which Sam Levine played, on Broadway. Well, we're doing MASH, and Jerry Zaks, an actor who was with the road company of Grease, and he got like a day's work on our show, MASH, and he was talking to me and about, things weren't going well his way, and so I gave him a pep talk, and we kind of became friends. I was trying to bolster him in some way. Well, it turns out he winds up going to New York and becomes a Broadway director.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That Jerry Zaks.
And then one of the things he was doing was Guys and Dolls on Broadway. And they were holding auditions out here at the Dorothy Chandler Theater. And so I called. I said, can I get an audition with Jerry? I'd love to do an audition for Nathan Detroit. So I went in, and I'm not a singer as Nathan Detroit wasn't anyway, a singer. But I did a version of Singing in the Rain, and I did the dialogue with them, and they all said, oh, that was very good, it was very nice, and everything else. But what I hadn't known is that they had already cast the show in New York. It was Nathan Lane was doing Nathan Detroit, Josie de Guzman was a Salvation Army lady, and something else, and I forgot who the gentleman was playing Sky Masterson.
Was that Peter Gallagher?
Yes, Peter Gallagher. You're absolutely right. So now I go about my way, and it's one of those dry spells after you've done MASH, and I'm starting to do some dinner theaters just to keep working, and I get a phone call from New York, and they said, hey, they want you to come in for Guys and Dolls. I said, oh, you mean they want me to audition? They said, no. They want you to be Nathan Detroit. I said, oh, is this the road company? They said, no, this is the Broadway show. Nathan Lane is leaving. So they said, Jerry Zaks remembered you for your audition that you did at the Dorothy Chandler Theater.
Wow.
I said, oh, my God, I'd never played Broadway. Okay, so now I'm going on. I'm saying, I'm going to go on Broadway, and my little dream is going to come true. I'm going to be Nathan Detroit on a Broadway version of Guys and Dolls, and you only get 10 days rehearsal, and you only get 1 day, one performance with the cast. So you're working with the dance captain and everything else to learn the lines and to do, and you had all these numbers, sit down, you're rocking the boat and all these other things that you're doing, the choreography in it. And Jeff Wright, I was so scared and so nervous.
Oh, yeah.
And here I was going to be, and I had a audition with the cast, and then was going to open the next night, Tuesday night. I had it on their day off, which is Monday.
Wow.
And then after you do the show, if you get through that one, you got the Wednesday matinee and then the Wednesday next show. So
Wow.
there's no respite there.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out absolutely terrific. Clive Barnes, who was one of the big reviewers, came back to re-review the show, and I got a glowing review in the New York Post from him. And Frank Lesser's widow, Joe Lesser, came to see the show and said that was more like the original way that they had done it when Robert Alda and Sam Levine had done it. So,
oh my gosh,
that was when you ask about a moment in my career.
Yeah.
That was it. And I did it almost a year. I actually got hurt in there, and they did that sit down, you're rocking the boat. We were standing on these wooden chairs and the chair gave way, and I fell. And I injured my neck area on the stage, and I finally had to leave the show. The pain was so bad.
Oh my gosh!
And to this day, I still have problems from it. I never got hurt on any movie sets. Every time I got hurt or anything was usually on the stage.
And never any injuries from any of those dresses on MASH. So.
No, you never fell off the high heels.
Oh, you bet.
Well, hey, speaking of the heels, Eileen Garsky asks, I want to ask him how his feet are, because all those times filming in heels must have hurt his feet.
Well, they did indeed. And they were very expensive shoes. The brand name was El Grande, which in Spanish is the big one, So they discovered that when I was running through the hills, when we do the location things, that you really couldn't see your feet. So I broke a lot of those high heel things off, and they were very expensive at that time. I think those shoes were like $35 a pair or something. And so they, since you couldn't see the feet, they put me in the tennis shoes, so I didn't have to do it that way. And again, if you recall, a lot of times, we were working at the studio and we were on that cement floor. And if you couldn't see the feet, we wouldn't have to wear those combat boots.
Yeah.
Poor Loretta used to have to wear those. So we got to the point where if you couldn't see the feet, you wore slippers or something that was far more comfortable than those combat boots.
They were pretty tough, those boots. They were serious shoes.
Oh, yeah, I know. I wore them for real for a couple of years.
Yeah, you did.
I remember them very, very well.
Well, I have a big regret. And my big regret about MASH is that you and I didn't get more scenes together. I really do. I wish Igor and Klinger had some more fun stuff to do together.
Well, listen, the stuff you did was absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet of you.
When Igor showed up behind that counter, I mean, whatever he was serving, he was going to get a laugh anyway. They keep showing that one with the liver and fish.
A river of liver and an ocean of fish.
Yeah, liver and fish, and Alec goes crazy, I think, with the Adams ribs and some of the other stuff that you said. Of course, as you know, a lot of times, I think you served Mike Farrell applesauce or something because he was like a vegetarian and he didn't need any of the meat stuff and that.
It's funny. People ask me, gee, was that food, was it really awful? It really wasn't awful. It was from the commissary.
Yeah. Well, if you remember correctly, I used to have those hot dogs flown in from Toledo.
Yeah.
They pack those hot dogs and beer, and then I had the L.A. Kings and the Edmonton Oilers, the hockey teams on the set, and they'd watch the shooting of it, and then we'd all go go into the mess tent. I had the Stanley Cup winners, the New York Islanders, in there serving people hot dogs with chili sauce and that French beer that they flew in from Toledo. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a really great family there, and I miss them all.
Yeah.
Their friendship and their contribution to the show. All of our crew.
Oh.
Like, I still get some stuff from Mike Casey. Remember, he became our prop master there, Michael Casey.
Yes.
Well, if you remember correctly, even we had another gentleman by the name of Casey that was our camera operator.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Palmer was, and DJ Jurgensen was our director of photography, but the camera operator was Casey. And sometimes they'd have to cut because he was laughing and it'd shake the camera.
Yeah.
He was laughing so hard when he was photographing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great memories.
It was a lot of darn fun. Well, it was a lot of fun, and this was a lot of fun too, Jamie.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we could finally get together, and I hope your show is successful. I hope you stay healthy, both of you and your families. And
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure and an honor to do the show. I hope your listeners enjoyed it, and I hope we get to see each other on occasion.
Indeed.
So you take care, both of you, and if you talk to any of our gang, you send them my best.
We will. We love you, Jamie, and we thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
It was a pleasure.
Oh, wow. What a great conversation with Jamie Farr. I just smiled the entire time while we were doing that interview. And while I was listening to it again, I smiled even bigger. He is a delight. He is a national treasure. And it is so, so wonderful to talk to Corporal Klinger himself.
What an amazing moment in an actor's life as well. To get that kind of part, to have it begin as kind of a, well, we don't know, we're not sure. And then it's a mistake. And then they do it again. And it works really big to the point that he became an iconic major character for the show. What an amazing story. What an amazing journey. What an amazing actor, too. He's a delight, a terrific guy. And like you, I had a Cheshire cat grin on my face.
Hey, we love bringing these interviews to you, and we have some more interviews on the way.
Really? Do we? Do we really?
We do.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Tell me.
Well, some of these are people you know from MASH. Some of these people may not necessarily be associated with MASH, but there are some unique ways that they are linked to the MASH universe. So we've got some interesting interviews in the hopper, and we'll be bringing those to you in the coming months. Now, if you have any ideas of guests for us, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to throw us an idea of somebody we could talk to here on MASH Matters, I can't guarantee that we're going to contact everybody, but we want to hear from you. What interviews would you like to hear on MASH Matters? So you can always contact us through our website, on Twitter, Facebook, email us, mashmatterspodcast@gmail.com. You can also call and leave a voicemail at 513-436-4077. Just make sure it's under 3 minutes in length, or you can record a voice memo and send it to us through our website, mashmatterspodcast.com.
And if it's you who want to be interviewed, you think you have something very, very essential and very important to talk about, and you want us to interview you, what is it, Ryan? Now 5,000 cash? Is that what it is?
Right. Yeah, it's 25 up front and then 25 after the interview.
After the interview, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But that's not bad.
No, not at all.
Get in on that, everybody.
And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please go and leave a 5-star review and write a little review for us there. We are getting a lot of reviews in, and we appreciate everybody. I wanted to read one that came in here recently. This is from Space Disc Jockey. This podcast is something I've been looking for years. I've been a MASH fan since the early 80s. I got to watch the last few seasons as they aired, and I've been hooked ever since. Ryan is the knowledgeable MASH fan who knows every episode and wonders many of the same things I have always wondered. While Jeff, was there when it happened and offers insights and behind-the-scenes info better than any other documentary or interview I've ever seen.
Aww.
Jeff and Ryan's fun relationship combined with some amazing guests as well as some great questions from listeners make this a worthwhile podcast and a genuine treat for any fan of MASH. Keep it up, guys. How about that?
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice. Very, very nice.
So leave a review and we may read your gushing review on the air because it does nothing except bolster our egos.
Exactly. And please be as gushing as you possibly can, because that'll help get it on. Okay? Thank you.
That's right. The gushier, the better. All right. So we've got some more fun stuff on the way and some big interviews coming up as well. Keep those questions and comments coming in. We will be answering more of those questions coming up in some future episodes. And until next time, here's looking up your old address.